Okay, so this little mini lecture is going to be way shorter than the last one on Boersma. I just want to look at a couple pages from a book by a guy named Richard Kearney, who's a very prolific writer, works in the areas of philosophy and literature, and he wrote a little called On Stories, which you can see there in the lower part of the screen. And there's one quotation in particular that I want to give to you. I want to be emblazoned on your brains. And so let's just take a little look at this. Richard Kearney teaches at Boston College, and he trained under a guy named Paul Ricoeur. Some of you may know the name of Paul Ricoeur. He was pretty famous as a philosopher, and he himself trained in the area of hermeneutics, and he influenced. I want to say that he taught. I think that's right. I'm not sure if he supervised, but he taught Emmanuel Macron of France. So Kearney is someone who was trained by Paul Ricoeur and has himself become a very important leading figure in the study of interpretation theory. And in this little excerpt, he's getting at something very similar to what Boersma's talking about with the notion of a different ontology. So I just took a couple of pages out of his opening chapter, so I want to pick it up after the break. He says, but let me return briefly to our genealogy of storytelling. What both historical and fictional narratives have in common is a mimetic function. So just pause there, because what I want you to be comfortable with is the notion that history shares common ground with fiction. Now we want to be careful here. I don't have time to go into this. I don't want to make this overly long, but certainly for Kearney, it's going to be an important theme of his book that this does not mean that all of history is fictionalized and that we're just making up stories, and that those who are in power are the ones who get to make up the story that gets told. There's an acknowledgement that there's a dimension of that's true, but you want to be careful about not just exaggeratedly thinking that that's what he's saying here. He's saying more the two go together, and both modes of writing involve a mimetic function. Now, mimesis is the very term that is in question here. We might start by thinking of it as representation. How do you represent something? How do you represent something? We do that through language. We do that in a variety of ways. But here's the thing. From Aristotle to Auerbach, it has been recognized that this involves far more than a mere mirroring of reality. So it's not as though reality is something that you already know, that it's already known, and that the artist already knows the totality of this reality and simply mirrors it in their painting or their poem or whatever else it is that they're creating. There's more going on here than mirroring. And you can already hopefully see a connection with the idea of bourgeois, reality having a moreness to it. When Aristotle defines mimesis in his Poetics as the imitation of an action, he means a creative redescription of the world such that hidden patterns and hitherto unexplored meanings can unfold. Okay, so for Aristotle, there's the notion that there are hidden patterns. There are hitherto unexplored meanings. So reality is never fully known. Even the most basic reality that you might have before you, like I have my coffee cup here, even this basic reality is not fully known to me. And it doesn't become fully known simply if we give it to a scientist and he breaks it down into its, component parts. We'll learn more about this in something that I want you to look at in week 2. But the point here is that the scientist, he or she, cannot fully explain things either. That there is a reality that the poet, the painter, the artist, the philosopher can reflect on and can draw out other dimensions of. So the very notion of rhetoric involves this sense of creativity. As such, mimesis is essentially tied to mythos, taken as the transformative plotting of scattered events into a new paradigm. What Paul Ricoeur, he has this little bracketed, then he's gesturing to the person who taught him. What Paul Ricoeur calls the synthesis of the heterogeneous. It has little or nothing to do with the old naturalist conviction that art simply holds a mirror up to nature. Okay, so in this little reading, what I want you to take away is the notion that even a modern poet, he refers to two people, Aristotle and Auerbach. Aristotle is, of course, the ancient philosopher. Auerbach is a 20th century literary critic and philosopher of culture. And what he wants you to understand is that even modern artists, unconsciously or subconsciously, tap into this old understanding of the nature of the real. And notice, before we leave this reading, notice that Aristotle talks about the imitation of an action. That the notion of the real includes action. That action is baked into the very being of things. I think I'll just leave it there. And that's what I want you to take away from this little reading of Kearney. All right. Thank you.